well, skip it, it'll have to do until the real thing comes along.
Number one, congratulations on the success.
Thank you, Dave.
So far of As I Remember It.
We're very proud of it.
You should be.
We're very proud of it. My people on the stage who you saw before are the bulk of at least the brass and wind part of the orchestra who are on that album.
Tell us a little bit about how that whole album came together, because it's very unique in what you do.
As I Remember It was the name of a live show that I wrote for Mr. Kiddo and Mr. Schreiber, the producers at Carnegie Hall. In the summer of 1995, they had a 3-night music festival in honor of Frank Sinatra's, at that time, forthcoming 80th birthday. Mm-hmm. They asked me to close the show, and I got to thinking about it, and I thought, wouldn't it be kind of nice if I could sit on a stool and tell people stories about where these songs came from? So we did this at Carnegie Hall, and the audience was like this. And they were captivated by it, and I was delighted.
Captivated more by the stories.
The stories and then the songs, you know, is what it was. And going through the years like that, and about that time, my father's producer, Elliot Weissman, came in. He said, hey, you know, that'd make just a dandy little record album. And I said,
Elliot,
fine,
the master of understatement.
You want to put something together here, that's fine. Next thing I know, he calls me, he says, get As I Remember It together. You're going to record in April. Capitol is going to pick it up. And I said, I don't want to be on Capitol. I don't want to be on.
Why, because of the association with
No, I don't want to be on because of the association with Natalie Cole and the other juniors.
Okay.
I said, I'm a jazz singer. Why don't you put me on Capitol's jazz label, which is called Blue Note? Mm-hmm. So the Mr. Koppelman, the head of the EMI group, the parent company of Capitol, said, you know what, Junior's right. But we're not going to put him on Blue Note. We're going to put him on the classical wing, which is Angel. Mm-hmm. And I was very taken by that. I thought that was nice. He said, if you're going to make an album with essentially a symphony orchestra, we're going to put you on the same label with Ernst Ansermet and the Suisse Romande and those people, and I was very flattered by that.
You know what's interesting? You just referred to yourself. You said, I'm a jazz singer.
That's
and a
right.
lot of people hear your name, Frank Sinatra Jr., think instantly, they identify you with the music that your dad did. And with the exception of maybe one song tonight, 2 songs tops, what you did tonight was jazz. And it was wonderful. Right. And it's the type of music that's getting lost over the years.
I know, David. I have read your newspaper column for years and years and years, and you have said just that in print 1,000 times. Unfortunately, not enough people have taken your comments seriously. You and Maxine Messenger in Houston, the late Earl Wilson in New York, Irv Kupcinet in Chicago, Shirley Eder in Detroit, Joe Delaney in Las Vegas.
They happen to have 30 years on me.
It doesn't matter. You carry the same union card. These are the people who, like yourself, write the show columns. Mm-hmm. And they have all said the same thing. Recently in Las Vegas, just after we were there during August, Joe Delaney, who is now that Forrest Duke, the great columnist, is dead. Joe was the grand old man. Joe wrote a column. I read it that morning with my coffee, and I couldn't believe it. He said, I may be in for some severe chastisement and criticism for what I'm about to say. But the hotels right now are counting beans instead of making art form in their entertainment.
He wasn't lying.
Well, no, but I'll tell you, this takes a lot of guts to do that. You know that?
In a company town, absolutely.
No, that's what I mean like that. But you have maintained this posture steadily from the day one when I've read your columns when I've been here, and you have always said that. You've always promoted the professional entertainment. You know what's going on in Vegas? You know what a lot of showrooms have now?
They have either production shows or reviews. What's a
karaoke?
Karaoke. That is worse.
Do you remember Tom Dreesen, the comedian with my father? He used to say karaoke is the worst thing. It combines people who shouldn't sing with people who shouldn't drink.
I remember hearing him say that.
There's a kind of walk you walk when the world's undone you. We got Richard Simmons. There's a kind of walk you walk.
So how's the record doing so far? It's been out a month.
I'm very pleased to tell you, friend to friend, that our record, which came out just about a month ago, is now sold out in its first printing.
Is it really?
Which was a small printing, and they are printing again now, and I'm happy to say that we have had people who have bought it who are Sinatra fans. The radio personalities who play this kind of music have really smashed it hard. They've been playing it for us, and I couldn't be happier, because we're very proud of the record. It is the recorded equivalent of what we did on stage at Carnegie Hall. It is not an album that has one song followed by another song, by another song, by another song. We cut it together just like a movie. It's a diary. They said, what's it like? I say, it's a journal. It's a diary. It's a book of memoirs, and it's narrated just like underscored, like a movie.
And did you go to your dad and like say, tell me some stories?
No, I didn't have to. I knew them.
You knew them?
Because I was there. That's what it's about. That's why it's called As I Remember It. Yeah.
So you didn't have to pick his brain?
No, not at all.
What was his response?
He
or
heard, we
reaction to the
finished
whole thing?
mastering As I Remember It in November of '95. He heard it the first week of December, and he was very touched by it, which pleased me a great deal. He was very touched by it. He said, nice record. And he was very flattered by it, and I think he was very touched by it.
Did he find any inaccuracies or saying,
I don't really think if he did, he even mentioned it, because I don't think he remembers that much. Some of it goes back a ways, you know?
So you must have, then you've got a hell of a memory, because
Yes, I
you
do.
must have been
Yes, I do.
very, very young when some of these stories
Oh, yes,
took place.
yes, yes, yes.
And yes, I know how lonely life can be. The shadows follow me.
The fun thing about our record is, as the story goes by across the years, the technology of the recording industry goes by right along with it. The beginning is 1940, and the first thing you hear are the scratches, which I recorded off my own Victrola. I have one of these at home.
Do you really?
And I sampled it with I went into the men at Universal Studios who made E.T. and Jurassic Park and everything. They did the mastering. And I brought him the tape from my Victrola, and I gave him the tape, and I was Larry Walsh, our chief mastering engineer, he said, what's the matter with you? I said, there's something wrong with this. And it just occurred to me. He said, what? I said, we're using an MS full condenser, high-grade, high-band stereophonic microphone with a multi-bit digital tape recorder to record the scratches off a 78 RPM record. There's something wrong with this. The beginning is monaural 1940, like this, right? When we get into the early 50s, we're still monaural, but now it's high fidelity.
Right.
Right?
Hi-fi.
And then after that, suddenly it breaks into stereo, and that's really the fun of it, that people get a kick out of that.
Judging from the early success of this album, it almost leads me to believe that this could become a series of albums?
Frankly, and nobody's asked me this but you now, I'm expecting that if this album does well, Angel will come to me and say, we'd like As I Remember It Chapter 2, which will be fine because we have enough stories.
But how do you get
Enough
airplay on something like this?
That's the biggest question in the world. Fortunately, we have some people with the radio networks who service all the radio stations that play this kind of music. There's one company called Stardust. There's another one called Music of Your Life. There's another one called Westwood One, which is where I live in California. Right. And they're sending these things out to 200 radio stations at a crack, just like your television program. It goes out by satellite. They pick it up on a network.
Ain't satellites great?
And, well, the instantaneous electronic feed we have is the thing that's kind of good about it, But again, in your profession, I would worry about it, David. The newspaper, as you and I know it, is doomed.
Oh, absolutely.
One day, your newspaper will be the TV screen. When you sit at your table in the morning...
Frank, it already is, because the paper that I write for...
Yeah, they punch it up on TV, and here's the front page, here are the headlines.
That's exactly what they've done.
Now here's the city page, here's the social page, here's the calendar page, and that's it. The newspaper, as we know it in its physical form, is going into electronics now. It just,
Why do I think that would make your dad happy with all the battles he had over the years with newspaper
Well, David,
people?
you're only partially right. He only had battles.
Well, like I say, I never had a battle with him.
He only had battles with the gossip columnist and the yellow journalists and whatnot. I mean, he would hang out, one of his dearest friends and drinking buddies, by the way, is a man by the name of Jim Bacon, who's been one of the writers with Associated Press now for 50 years. Yeah. Jim Bacon was the man that Howard Hughes gave the interview to.
That's right.
All right?
Yep.
And the two of them, I go in and I see my old man and Jim Bacon after a show like in Atlantic, and they'll both be in the dressing room like this. They'll be bombed out of their gourds. And he said, see, he only had problem with the gossip columns and the smear sheeters, you know.
Yeah, I never had it's funny because the first time he played Atlantic City
In the casino era, I went to review his show, and I went objectively, and I wrote, this was good, and yet maybe this song, he can't hit that note anymore, and well, you know what happens when you say anything critical about Sinatra.
you know, the fans come out and they call and I'm thinking,
You can't take that attitude. Listen.
No.
First of all,
no.
let me tell you something you may not know. When Frank Sinatra was a young man, he wanted to be a reporter.
I know that. Because
I got the most wonderful letter from him. I mean, at first I was afraid to open. I didn't know what the hell it was going to say, but when I opened it, and it's still framed in my office at home right now, it basically said, thank you for the objective review. Thank you for knowing something about the music business, and thank you for your honesty. And I can honestly say that I am one newspaper journalist who never saw the dark side, if there was one, of Frank Sinatra.
You know what? The last
was
time
fair.
I checked, this wonderful, troubled, and often maligned country of ours is still a democracy.
And
You
there's
know what I mean?
freedom of the press.
And when that goes, by the way, and it's threatened right now from pressure groups, religious groups, and things like that, when that goes, we've got big troubles, because that is the first, that what troubles me, so many grand old papers that I have known through the years have been in print 135 years are going out of business now. You know what I mean?
You know, you've been talking almost like a history professor, and
And on stage tonight, you sounded very much like a music professor.
Well, I'm
You-
sorry if I come on that
No.
stuffy-
I think what you did on stage is an educational
Oh,
thing
that's 6,
for
8 months ago.
for the
One of the
audience and for the
music
people who
writers
might
in
be
the country
watching
said
this at
that,
home,
well,
because
the real
you
era
explain
of
little
the great
nuances about
American
music that people might not
club.
otherwise
Well,
get.
that's what our new album's about.
Just
the
after
music
World War
itself.
II.
You know, music has gone so far. You know, it's unfortunate what you and I are facing now, because I think you and I both come from a different era. Having read your columns, I know what you think of bands and singers and people like that. You know.
Well, I still grew up listening to the Beatles, but I also grew up listening to Maynard Ferguson and Sinatra and a little bit of classical, so I had that background.
David, the Beatles were singing love songs primarily. I didn't like the narcotic songs they sang, because I'm against narcotics, but primarily they sang love songs.
Right.
All right? But then you got Snoop Doggy Dogg and all these other people are just wailing on right now, and the stuff they have, for me, this is just my opinion, is just plain antisocial.
It would seem that
I
way.
have never heard such anger, you know?
One question I know a lot of people want to know, is your dad retired? I mean, there's never been an announcement, but he
You
hasn't.
have to understand, David, and I tell people this all the time, with him, you'll never know.
Okay.
He's sitting around down there. He was in Palm Springs for the month of February because of his golf tournament
Right.
for his wife's charity, the Sinatra Abused Children thing. Now they're back in Los Angeles again, and he's sitting around, and I think he's enjoying taking some time off. But it could happen so fast you wouldn't believe it. He'll be sitting there one day, drinking coffee, eating breakfast, reading the paper, walking somewhere, and he's going to say, hey, I've been sitting around too long here, and the phone will ring
I was
now.
gonna say, you're
about
gonna
3
get the
o'clock in
call.
the morning. Yeah, hello. I say, yeah, hello, who is this? He said, what do you mean, who is this? Get your passport, get your tuxedos pressed, get the book out, we're going out. And it'll happen, if it happens, just like that. There is never an answer to your question.
But what if you say to him, but I'm booked. I got my own tour.
His show
Yes.
has priority
Really?
here for me, yeah. I have to be there with
You've been
him.
conducting for him since, what, 88?
88, right. And I
How did-
have to be there.
Why did that come, or how did that come together?
I was working in Atlantic City at the Atlantis
That's right.
Hotel. And one afternoon, Buddy Childers and Mike Smith and some of my fine friends were sitting in the suite getting ready to discuss the evening's show menu. And about that time, the phone rang, and I answered, and my father was on the phone, you know, and I said, what's going on? He said, listen, and this is how it happened. He said, why don't you come out and conduct for me? Well, after Mike and Buddy revived me with the smelling salts,
Well, he was still down this. Was he working down the
No,
street?
he was at home at this
okay.
point. He was playing in Atlantic City
Right.
now and again, but he was not in the same town
Okay.
at that time. And I said, what do you mean you need me to conduct for you? What is this all about? I said, what's the matter with Bill Miller, his pianist? He said, I need Bill to play the piano. It will be easier to get a conductor than a good pianist. And I'm of the viewpoint that just maybe if I have another singer conducting for me, a singer will understand what a singer is trying to do.
Wow.
And so it started. And that's it.
Had you ever conducted an orchestra before?
Sure I had, but only for me.
Right. Not for him.
No, it's, you know, I mean, there's a kid that goes and plays Little League ball, the next thing he's in Yankee Stadium. You know, it's a little bit of a, it's a little bit of a culture shock.
An intimidation factor?
Quite, yeah, quite. It was quite intimidating, but fortunately, he exercised great restraint with me. He only punched me a couple of times.
Some of the
Dean used to say to me, he says, he's a friend of yours, you only hit him once. You know.
Some of the most fun I ever had watching your dad was when he would turn around and do shtick with you. And there wasn't much you could do to except kind of take it.
He used to hit me with things all the time. And I used to say the same things to him, too. I'd go in his dressing room before the show and I'd say, hey, Dad, there's a chick out there. She thinks you're Tom Jones. She's going to throw some of her underclothes with you on the stage. He says, underclothes? I said, you know, support hose, a hearing aid. And he would get out and I would run and these ashtrays, and pow, would come flying after me.
But it was a sign that he loved you.
One time I told him, I said, there's a woman here who wants your autograph. She says she loved you since she saw you in the movie. And he looked at me and said, what movie? I said, you know, the one when you played William S. Hart's great-grandfather. She said, great! Bang! Stuff is flying out, you know.
So you had a good relationship. You still have a good relationship.
I got to put him on a little bit, lighten him up, you know. I got to lighten him up. It's no secret, David. My father's 80 years old.
Right.
He was in his late 70s. He was getting nervous about going on. You know what I mean?
Was he really?
Sure he was nervous about that. He had cataract surgery in both eyes. And he said to me, you know, he's looking at his teleprompters, he says, it's like I'm trying to read through broken windows. So that's what it looks like, you know. And it used to upset him a little bit, so I try to lighten him up a little bit. So
you could still get the call.
it could come, it's so fast it'd make your head spin, and if it comes, it will be between 1 a.m. and about 4 a.m. wherever I am. You know, that's it. He'll say, get everything together, get the book out, get the guys out of mothballs, the book out of mothballs, get me out of mothballs, get your shoes shined, your tuxedo pressed, get your passport, we're going out. Be a plane ticket in the mail tomorrow.
Will you do me a favor? Will you call me when you get that call? And it's
could
okay
happen any time.
If it's 4 in the morning, call me anyway.
Now, I'm not saying it's going to, but
Right,
it could happen at any time. If he gets a bug in his ear about sitting around here and gets said, what am I doing sitting here? What is this, you know? And he's going to get annoyed with that. So right now he's enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
Sooner or later it's going to wear real thin. He's going to say, that's it, and I'm going out of here, you know?
I'm wondering if Jilly were around today, I bet you Jilly could come on.
Jilly would love to and whatnot. He was his pal, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, those guys, they were neighborhood guys. My father was the Sylvester Stallone of his day, just like Rocky was off the streets of South Philadelphia,
Right.
Sinatra was off the streets of Hoboken. Italian kid, son of immigrant parents, you
Right.
know, the usual thing.
Incredible. Hey, I want to thank you for spending some time with us.
Nice to see you again,
It's a
Dave.
pleasure to see you.
Come back anytime you want.
We want everybody to buy the album because they're in for a real treat. It's as I
I
remember
hope
it.
that we're sort of proud of it. I hope they like it, yeah.
Well, how can they not? If it's
Well, if they like Sinatra music, they might enjoy the stories, you know,
that's
things like that.
That's the whole hook, isn't it?
yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
That's the hook. Continued success. We'll see you
Thanks,
back
Dave.
here in Atlantic City.
Okay.
And the night won't set me free, but I won't let the evening get me down. Now that you're around,